Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much and welcome to our conversation today. The conversation we are having today is how will the cost of living, the very high cost of living, affect the 2022 general elections? As many of you may be aware that we'll be going into the elections on the 9th of August. That is just about 32 days to go. And the high cost of living is something that. Okay, thank you, Simon. So the high cost of living is one of the concerns that almost every Kenyan has at the moment. And I think that is where we will begin. So, Mr. Washira, thank you for joining us on the panel. My question for you is, how has the cost of living affected you? Maybe you wanted to buy something for your significant other, but you had to forfeit that because of the cost of living. Or maybe there's a place you wanted to go, but you could not. So please share with us, how has this affected you so far?
Maybe even Mkoko, before we bring in Mr. Washira, just also to let everyone who is watching right now know that we are live on all our 3 platforms. We are live on Facebook, we are live on Twitter, we are live on YouTube same time. So you can also share the link, but the 3 says we are live at the same time. The comments as they keep coming, we'll be reading them from here. It is also important, Mkoko, to know that today is Sabasaba, the 7th day of July, and every year, you know what happens? Kenyans stand up for something. So today there were some demonstrations in the city center. People were saying that, you know what, we want the cost of the prices of food commodities and the basic commodities to be brought down with immediate effect, because we cannot afford to go to another election with the way things are. Right now, children are at home because we are aware that is the short holiday. Soon, that is not even soon. Next week, they are opening back for term 2. Parents are expected to pay school fees. They are expected to buy shoppings and make sure that the children go back to school. There are no sufficient jobs in the country right now. So many young people graduating, no jobs, if I may say so. And here we are, another general election is coming, of course, as expensive as usual. Politicians using money left, right, and center as always. The big question we're asking ourselves tonight, my brothers and sisters, how are these going to affect the general election? Back to you, Mkoko.
Yes, so how are this going to affect the general election? That is the main question. But we just want to have a test or a feel of how actually Kenyans are feeling at the moment and how this has affected their lives. And as I said earlier, we'll start with Washira. Just tell us how this high cost of living has affected your life. If there's something that you are free to share, please go ahead. If there's something that is personal, then you can reserve that. Yes, thank you, Washira.
Thank you, moderator. First of all, permit me to thank everybody who has taken part in organizing this debate for today. I think it's a good debate to have today. To answer your question, these days you find that even you go to the supermarket or even to the market, whatever you are buying some few months ago, you come up with almost half. I remember my worst experience was I went with 1,000 shillings to the supermarket and it was enclosed in a gazette. You know, those people who understand what I'm saying. Some few months ago, 1,000 could have bought you, a very good paper bag. But these days, you find it's even being wrapped with just a nylon paper. That is my personal experience.
Wow. That is rough indeed. Hata mimi nimeogopa kuangalia M-Pesa balance because sitaki stress. But either way, I will move to you, Josephine. How has this high cost of living affected your life?
Okay, it's not any different from how it has affected Washira's life, but then right now I'm cautious about visiting people, not because I'd want to eat at their places, but also because I'm looking at how much it will cost me to just reach the place, the venue. As Kitambo, you could just board a matatu and you won't be worried. But right now, you are putting into consideration the amount I'll use to commute from one point to another. I'd use that amount of money to do something else, to maybe buy supper or lunch. So it's really restricted my movement. I can't now freely move without having to put into consideration the amount of money that I'll have to use. So you have to, if you have maybe something to do at the CBD, because I'm quite far from CBD, I'll have to wait until I have quite a number of things I need to do so that I go and do once. I can't go there as often as I'd wish to. So it's really affecting personally my movement, and I feel something needs to be done about it. And about what Washira is saying right now, most of us usually prefer doing our shopping once for the month. But then right now you can't. You have to do it in bits, because whatever you are using for the whole month, you can only manage that for half a month. And then after that, you need to start thinking where to get extra cash to take you through the other half of the month.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate. And Josephine says she cannot move around. I think I'm trying to move around as much as possible, especially during lunch hours, so that I can visit more friends during those times and see whether they have something we can share. But OJ Optimus, labda wewe uko na experience tofauti. How has the high cost of living affected you? Ama wewe uko sawa?
OJ, your volume is, we can't hear anything from you. Very low. Okay, give it a try.
Yeah, so I hope you can hear me because I'm using headsets. Maybe I try the speaker. But all the same, to me, I think the high cost of living has been a mess to this country, to this economy. To me, to me as a business person, I used to go buy goods up country and come sell them. But when you're trying to do business, and maybe kwa mfano nimeendea avocado zangu Kisii, at zamani I used to sell them at 20 shillings because ningepiga sababu mafuta and labor and how I buy them. But now you see, I'm spending so much on diesel. The money, diesel used to be like, let me say 80 shillings per liter. Sahi, it's actually hitting up to 140, 160. So you see, I'll have to spend more. But again, ikifika pale kwa soko, watu ambao ni macustomers wangu, kwa mfano kama Washira na Josephine, ambao wanasema life imekuwa bad, when I try to sell these people, this avocado moja that I used to sell at 20, niwaambie, sasa life imepanda, let's try at 50, unapata ya kwamba business haiendi successfully, simply because if the people don't have money, me as a business person, I will not sell things at the price that I want, because the economy in affect kila mtu, and that is also bringing the GDP down. So to me, I think the high cost of living, it cuts across all sectors. Kama upondo na pesa, wewe hauna pesa, mimi siwezi pata pesa as a business person. So to me, that is really the biggest loss that I've encountered in this era. Yeah, hiking. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, OJ Optimus, for sharing that. OJ Optimus cannot sell his products because Josephine has no money and Washira has no money either. Mr. Oduho, thank you, and we are happy to see you. Mr. Washira says that he used to go with 1,000 shillings to the supermarket and get out with something. Today he goes there and he gets out with a very small bag because everything has become more expensive. Josephine anasema hana fare. Imekuwa very expensive to travel around. She can no longer get wherever she wants. And Optimus naye anasema he cannot sell his products to Kenyans, or the business is not thriving as it would before because no one has money. And so my question for you, Mr. Oduho, is how has this high cost of living affected your life? Ama wewe maisha iko tu sawa? Mr. Oduho.
Yes, my brother. Confirm. Can I to confirm? Can you hear me well?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, it is quite well. It is indeed quite unfortunate that that the price, just the general cost of living is increasing, but unfortunately, it is a matter that cannot be avoided because inflation exists. So that we find that in relation, in this specific context, in relation to the 2022 general elections, and how the heightened cost of living affects this 2022 general elections, I would like to believe that it makes the people more conscious, more attentive to the economic policies that are being championed by especially the presidential candidates, wherein you hear every now and then people talking about after the election everything is going to go back to normal, but there is a sense in which the people, the majority, don't really understand what is contributing to the high cost of living. So, for example, in this time round, as opposed to the 2008 financial crisis,
just a moment.
Yes.
Maybe you as an individual, before we go to the other things, because even before we go to connecting to the election, how has the high cost of living affected you as an individual?
Maisha ni ngumu. Maisha imekuwa ngumu. So kawaida, like speaking, kuangalia tu bei ya unga bana. Imebidi now nianze kuresort kushaga bana, because if you want to ensure that you're able to buy things in bulk, it is indeed just as Washira has mentioned. 1,000 is nothing anymore, unfortunately. So life has definitely become harder. It is now incumbent upon individuals to increase productivity and generate more income to be able to, meet the deficit caused by inflation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Bwana Duho. And indeed, maisha imekuwa ngumu sana. But we want to connect this to the elections. But my question before we get there, my question is, what do you think is the cause of this problem? Is it the war in Ukraine? What is it? Bwana Wachira, what do you think is the cause of the high cost of living in Kenya particularly? Because I've been speaking to someone in Tanzania, and well, they might have their own challenges, but it's not as bad as it is in Kenya. So why do we have this high cost of living, Mr. Wachira?
The reason why we have this high cost of living, and when we remove matters that are global, like the COVID-19 pandemic, whatever is happening in Ukraine, in our own country, whatever is making the living cost very high, I think it is we as a country, we have gotten used to living beyond our means. What do I mean by saying that? We are taking debts all over, and the government is busy taking debts. It has been accruing for the past 10 years since the Jubilee government has been in place. And remember, since that has happened, we have to pay these taxes back. We have to pay these debts back in terms of taxes. I remember on 21st of June, just the other day, the Senate passed the bill that increased the threshold of the government borrowing. It is now at 10 trillion Kenya shillings. Yeah. It has given the government mandate to borrow more. And now what will happen after this? This money is supposed to be paid back because it's a debt. Therefore, the government will start taxing us more in order for them to get money to pay back these debts that they're taking from the IMF, from the World Bank, from other countries. And as of 2022, the government had released a report saying that the Kenya national debt stands at 8.4 trillion. And you see, that is 76% above the mark that has been recommended by the IMF. 76% of our GDP ratio is debt. And as at April 2013, we are getting to see that 1.8 trillion was borrowed. Just
to cut you short, Mr. Wachira. Yeah. Thank you very much for bringing out the point. We want to keep this section a little bit brief, and I think we get your point. The point is that the debt crisis is the problem. We are spending so much money servicing debts, and that is leading to higher taxes for our goods, and that is making the cost of living so high. Josephine, maybe to ask you, first of all, do you agree with Wachira that one of the major concerns is the debts that we are borrowing? And is there any other reason why we have this high cost of living? What is the other cause? Josephine.
I'd partially agree with him, and partially not, because every country has the right to borrow. It's not wrong to borrow. As an economist, I'll tell you, borrowing is good. It's just the problem with our country is there's mismanagement of these particular funds that have been borrowed. You see, when you borrow me money, you have to have a strategy on how to pay that money back. You have to make sure that money goes into use for the right purpose. If you borrow me money to do a business and then you take that money and decide to go out partying with the money, it means you'll have difficulties paying it back because there's no source of income.
Well, I think we lost Josephine.
Yeah, and even maybe as we wait for Josephine to come back, just also to let's also bring those who are joining us from far and wide. I know there are those watching us on the YouTube, those watching right now on Facebook, and even those following closely on Twitter. The hashtag is debate night. Another hashtag is the fifth. Why do we say the fifth? Because this is the race to the fifth presidency. Right now, everyone is the fifth, right? Like the fifth, Ruto the fifth, Mora the fifth, Wajakoya the fifth. Yeah. So even as we talk about this fifth presidency, as young people, how are we feeling about everything? The topic tonight, as always, we had told you earlier, we are trying to understand the effects of the high cost of living on the 2022 general election. And by this, we just mean how are citizens feeling it now that we are campaigning on the election during the election time, and even life after the election. Already people commenting here, someone saying, Simon really agreeing with the duo, saying, Oduho, this is much true. Karl Marx, Omukoko the shepherd and his eloquence is back on the screen. She may say, no country taxes itself out of a public debt or for revenue increase. Then considerate high cost of living in Kenya is purely out of poor policy making and largely corruption. And Simon then comes back to say, another great comment here from Simon, also the concept of internal borrowing worsens the situation. Back to you, Mr. Mukoko.
Yes, thank you very much. I think Josephine left us, but before she left us, she talked about mismanagement being a major concern, mismanagement of borrowed money. And Josephine argues that no country survives without debt. And so our biggest problem is mismanagement. And I think Mr. Shemay will agree because he says that one of the challenges we have is corruption and poor policy. And I think that plays into mismanagement of the funds that we have. Mr. OJ Optimus, to what extent do you agree? And what else do you think is the cause of the high cost of living in Kenya at the moment?
Thank you very much, Mkoko. Yeah, so to me personally, I feel our government has been failing us in terms of management, because some time back we heard of this term, the COVID billionaires, and actually the president himself said that Kenya was losing 2 billion Kenya shillings daily of the borrowed money. So to me, I just felt it's like the government itself could not even manage its money, because if the president of the nation will stand and say that a country is losing 2 billion shillings, then that actually raised an alarm, because it's him that appoints the cabinet secretaries. It's him that appoints the assistant CSS. It's him that has placed people to oversee the project that a government should do. So to me, I really felt in as much as we were borrowing, yes, and maybe building roads, doing 1, 2, 3 there, but I really felt it's like Kenya lacked planning in terms of enacting government policies. Then the also reason I will say was COVID, actually, ideally. When COVID came, we had a very poor infrastructure and poor planning on how to handle it. People lost jobs and we could not even control our economy. And a country without an economy is dead. And that's why the government went for debts, and we lacked how to repay the loans. So that is all I could say.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, OJ Optimus. And OJ Optimus argues that one, we have mismanaged our funds. He also argues that leadership has also failed, because if the president cannot do the right thing, if the president cannot get us on track, then who else will? And I really appreciate. OJ Optimus also says that COVID plays a very big and huge role in the situation that we are in today. I'm surprised that no one is talking about Ukraine. And maybe Mr. Duho, briefly, what do you think is the cause of the high cost of living? Do you think Ukraine comes in, the war in Ukraine?
Most definitely the war in Ukraine comes in, because now it is connected to the rise in the price of oil. Now, the fact that we're living in a global economy that still heavily relies on oil and gas as the major source of energy, we find that it contributes to the rising of the costs of everything, because now down from production itself of goods, acquisition of raw materials, this entire process involves energy. And that consumption of energy comes down to the use of oil and gas, whereby hence, by the simple rise in the price of oil, globally, the prices of goods and services that are all hence connected directly to the price of oil and gas rise accordingly. Hence, it is indeed caused and exacerbated by the situation in Ukraine, and it cannot be ignored, because as soon as, especially Russia's the sanctions on Russia take full effect, then are we genuinely going to see the effect? Yes,
Mr. Uduho. Yeah, I appreciate, and clearly you make the point that the war in Ukraine is certainly contributing to the challenges that we have. And maybe if you can take a few more seconds and talk about maybe if there's any other cause that you're aware of and you'd like to share, without going into the finer details, just to mention it, and then that will be most kind. Thank you.
Much obliged, much obliged. Simply put, corruption, just as the other speakers have mentioned, because of mismanagement of public funds, then it is contributing, in fact, exacerbating the inflation that is brought about by the rise of the US federal interest rates.
Okay, yep, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Duho. And I've listened to all the points that have been shared. One recurring theme is that mismanagement of funds is a major concern. The other thing that has been mentioned by Mr. Washira is the debt. We are spending so much money to service our debts. There was the
Mr.
point
Moderator,
say that again.
Allow me maybe play the devil's advocate here.
Yes.
Are we just using this as excuses or not? Because before war in Ukraine, were things any better? Before COVID, were things any better in Kenya? I mean, I just want us just to be realistic, because I'd like to know, for example, when Duhu mentions about oil, how about maize? How about even some of the basic things that we produce within the country? How are we able to relate these things to the war in Ukraine that you're talking about, Mr. Duhu?
On that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Flora,
Yes.
we can hear you.
Yeah, on that, I'm just thinking, you see, recently I've just really discovered that our country heavily relies on imports for our daily living, like for our sustainability. And I'll tell you, any country that relies on imports is bound to face such crisis, because we are not producing much to export and we are importing more. You get my point? So when you are importing more, it means there'll be increase in taxation. It's not our own. And we are relying on whatever the foreigners are bringing to us. So whatever prices they decide on, we have no power on that. When we look at the agricultural sector, how much has our government or even our county government invested in it? Why not invest on our own, such that we won't have to face such crisis of increase in food prices? Because if we have our own, we'll definitely not have to worry about whatever is happening in Ukraine or whatever is happening outside Kenya. I think the thing that's happening here is there's poor planning within our government sector. And as you've put it, it's not only this time of Ukraine, it's something that has been happening. Ukraine has only made it worse.
Hey, yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that. So Josephine argues that before, things have just been as bad, just that they have gotten worse, and perhaps the war in Ukraine has made this worse. But then let us bring it home. Let us take it to actually the topic that we have today, the effects of high cost of living on the 2022 elections. And I want to hear from you. First of all, you will tell me how this is going to affect the choice that you make in the 2022 election, and whether it plays a major role in the kind of person you decide to lead you as the president or any other capacity. But also, what do you think, or how do you think Kenyans will react to this high cost of living as far as the elections go? And I'll go back to Mr. Washira again, and I want you to start us off and tell us, how is this going to affect how you vote, and how do you think it will affect how the rest of the country votes? Mr. Washira.
Thank you. First of all, we have said this mismanagement and corruption that has been there in this current government has played a really big part in the cost of living in Kenya. However, let us look at things what is happening in the current politics of Kenya. We do know that the Azimio side is in bed with the government, and we also do not understand the dynamics that is happening, because now the Kenya Kwanza team, which the leader who is supposed to be in government, is not in government per se. So what happens now? People are going to argue, or even in my own understanding as a layman, I will think that now if Azimio is together with Jubilee government, how are they going to do any better change? How are they going to do anything if they are going to be remote controllers, as they say? And then we come to this other side, the Kenya Kwanza team. I want to ask ourselves, the leader of Kenya Kwanza is already supposed to be the deputy president of Kenya. If he has not done anything, how does he how does that team expect me as a citizen of Kenya to vote for them? Now it comes down to Professor Wajakoya and the other guy, David.
Yes.
We want to, Dr. Professor Jakoya is using that analogy as a campaign tool. You know, he's saying that those people are doing this, those people are supposed to have done that, but now it leaves the citizen or the voter in a quagmire. However, I'm very sure that many people, because I'm not going to say who I'm going to vote for, anasemanga kura yako ni siri yako. However, I am going to agree totally and 100% for sure that whatever is happening, especially the cost of living, is affecting the current politics and campaign politics in Kenya. And just to be a little bit clear, I think it will not favor much the Azimio side, because they are the ones who are seeming to be in bed with the government. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Wachira. Wachira argues that the cost of living is going to hurt one political side, and it raises a lot of question among Kenyans. Josephine, mimi kama mfuasi wa Jakoya, do you think that the cost of living is likely to make me decide whether I should vote for Kenya Kwanza or Azimio, ama Wakenya watapigia tu maybe their kingpin, or they will vote, because Kenya has very, very bizarre voting patterns, and there are people whom you can't convince. But do you think the high cost of living is going to convince people? And at this time, I'm not going to vote for my tribal kingpin because we really need someone who will change this. Do you think that will be the effect of the cost of living, Josephine?
No, I'll confidently tell you no. This is Kenya, and Kenyans, for lack of a better word, you see how sheep usually follow each other without even bothering. You can kill one, and trust me, the next one will still go the same path. Those are Kenyans for you. I'm not calling them that, but that is just an example of how we behave when it comes to politics and when it comes to voting. Look at the current situation. This man that wants to become the president is the current deputy president of Kenya. He has almost half the support of Kenyans. This other guy that also wants to be president of Kenya, this was that we are told there are two horses, is the man that has been in the system with the current government that we are crying about cost of living. These two people are still selling us the propaganda of the cost of living is high, the cost of unga will come down, blah, blah, blah. They'll do all this, forgetting that they have been part of this same government. They've been part of this same system. I don't know what we Kenyans used to see, or I don't know how we reason out. I still don't understand why we'd still support such people, seeing that they have been there, they have been in the system, they were in a position to make things better and implement these policies that they are bringing to us in the name of manifesto. I don't think it will change how Kenyans will vote. I'll tell you that for free. And you will see come 9th August 2022.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And welcome very much, Mr. Sabion. We are talking about whether the high cost of living will change the way people vote. And Josephine anasema hapana. Watu wa Jakoya ni watu wa Jakoya. The cost of living will not change how they vote. Watu wa Kenya Kwanza ni wale wale. Wafuasi wa Azimio ni wale wale. But Mr. Sabion, do you think the high cost of living will determine how you select your preferred presidential candidate? And how has the high cost of living affected you thus far, if at all it has?
To narrow it down, hello?
Yes.
Okay, to narrow it down, I'll start with the latter one. The cost of living is something that is very, very, very bad. I think it chews down to our pocket as civilians, and I think from my point of understanding as a techpreneur, I'll tell you that this thing has now down to every individual, be it any kind of lifestyle that you are living, you be rich, you be poor, the scissor is just cutting across. And to make my informed decision with regards to my next president, one should come with a plan that not only suffice, because if we talk about something that suffice, it's something that it gives up that opportunity to be complacent of where we'll be. So I want somebody that will give me something that satiates the need of nation. We must distinguish between being sufficed with something and satiation of something, because if you have satiation of something, that means that you have that a large plethora of everything that you can do without being limited on I have to do this or I have to beg this one so that this one can be executed. So we need that plan that can empower us, not to be given that meal daily, to be shown where we can go and fish or hunt by ourselves. So far I haven't seen any plan that provides that. So I might be sleeping during voting time because
Thank you very much, Mr. Sabian. And I think Mr. Sabian brings in a very important point, that actually Kenyans might decide not to vote because they are not seeing any solutions out there. But Mr. Duho, do you think Kenyans are getting angry and angrier at this time? And how will this anger affect how they vote? Mr. Duho.
Thank you very much. I do agree that that indeed it is that people are getting angry and frustrated at the situation. But unfortunately, I'm going to say something that may sound controversial. There is a sense in which, while people may be tired, they are not tired enough. While they may be angry, they are not angry enough, because then it would stand. It would serve to the basis of the assumption that because of the high cost of living, it should be the basis for individuals to make sound decisions as to whom they're going to elect as the next president of the country. And that the economic policies of either leader would hence be the primary basis of analysis of any manifesto. However, that process of analysis itself, with regards to dealing to the majority of individuals who are unfortunately devoid of the knowledge of civics, whereby in terms of hence matters responsible voting, it is there's a sense in which the people are greatly detached from responsible voting. This is why we even find ourselves in the situation that we find ourselves in today.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Duho. Mr. Duho says clearly that the feeling of anger will not necessarily influence the votes, and people are far from voting responsibly. Mr. Sabian argues that, well, I haven't seen any plan that solves our economic problems. And so, like many other Kenyans, I'll just stay at home and sleep instead of going to vote for no one or for people who have no solutions. Mr. Kotha Pondo, are you angry and hungry enough? And how is that going to affect your vote? Tell us about this situation and how that is also affecting other Kenyans. Mr. Pondo. You're muted.
Sorry, allow me not to talk about really how this is going to affect my voting, but my greatest worry here right now is with the anger and the hunger that people have. What is likely, how are politicians likely to use, or how the situation just likely to use this whole thing in the wake of maybe the results that maybe do not really go well with you? So I'm already an angry man. Together, I'm a hungry man. I've got nothing to lose, and I want to be open on this one, or however people take it. You know, sometimes when a man has nothing to lose, and you are angry, and at the same time you are hungry, you can do anything. I'm really worried that if this situation is not addressed right now, this is already just a very good ground for people to start looting other people's property. I have to say this, for people to start turning against each other, because, you know, we are seeing the politicians every day, both sides, especially the two big sides, that is the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. In as much as life is difficult, and they're telling us in the political rallies that life is difficult, but these people are moving around with 5 to 7 choppers per given time, and they arrive in these different rallies and they sell us their manifestos, and then leave the common citizens there and go their way. Already people are just looking and saying, you know, these people are already having money. What are they talking about? What is it that the deputy president could not solve that is waiting to become president to solve? What is it that Raila Odinga, even being the former prime minister and having worked with President Uhuru Kenyatta, and even President Uhuru Kenyatta having recognized that he came in to save his government, 3-4 years later, we were expecting that that solution could be part of, it's not just solution to themselves, kufunika aibu za Uhuru ama kufunika aibu zake na watu kutuangana makofi na nini. What we want are solutions to the common citizens. You know, we are not children of lesser God. We are all Kenyans, and we deserve better. And on Mr. Mukoko, on the other hand, maybe if I throw it back to the panelists here,
yes,
I don't know how you see it. Maybe the economists who are watching, or maybe even on the panel here, maybe do you think also the amount of money that is being splashed out, making also money maybe become very useless? because nowadays, I mean, politicians in every rally splashing out the 200 shillings and the 100 shillings. Is this also contributing to what we're talking about? Maybe too much money in the public?
Yeah, I think now that Gilbert Stark just joined us. Mr. Gilbert, what do you think is the effect of politicians dishing out so much money during the campaign period? Does that affect our economy? How?
Yeah, am I clear enough?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. And my say is this. I'll just jump into my say. I'll say, from my understanding with our country, the government is trying very much to keep the economy buoyant, because there is a correlation between
Yeah. Maybe just before you
economy.
go into that, Mr. Gilbert, I just have a quick question for you. How do you think
Yeah.
the dishing out of
Mhm.
money by politicians is affecting our economy at the moment, if at all it is?
Okay, so the dishing out of the money is actually is negatively and very very much deteriorating our economy, because
Yeah.
when there is a lot of money in the economy, which means there will be high demand of goods, right? And then with the
Yeah.
high demand of goods, the sellers will tend to have the chance to elevate the prices of the goods, which means it reflects to the existence of inflation through demand. Through demand, the
Okay.
prices will
Thank you.
be high. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
So
you. Thank you, Gilbert. Mhm.
it's very negative. So to my point is there's a very important matter when you consider politics.
Mhm.
At this time when we are going to elect our leaders and management of the economy. So the issue is the government has its best interest in maintaining the normal economic growth. Either it might be negative or positive, right?
Oh,
But
okay,
then,
Mr. Gilbert,
yeah,
I'll
yeah,
just cut you short there, because
yeah,
let's
yeah,
let's let's tackle this before we go really far.
uh-huh,
And Mr. Opono raises a very important question: the
uh-huh,
connection between the high cost of living and peace after the election. There is the argument that the youth could be used because they are feeling angry and hungry. They have nothing to lose, so they become much more available for misuse by politicians, and this has happened before. And so I want to
yeah.
hear from the panelists what they think the effect of this will be. And maybe I'll start with Paul because he just joined and hasn't had a chance to share. Mr. Paul, what is the connection between the feeling of anger and hunger with the outcome of the elections, first of all, and how is that connected to peace or lack of? Mr. Paul?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thanks. So, I think a question like that, I mean, just straight off the bat, it's common sense that costs are high, inflation, blah blah blah. There's been hunger, and then you'll have retaliation. On the other side, there's KOT, which makes it worse with social media. Such banter, whoever you support, they've caused this in this way or this in that way. So, in reply to your question, I think social media or the age we live in contributes a lot to the anger we have because of the hungers we have. Like if you compare 2022, where almost everyone, no matter your social standing, or mostly, you have access to a basic phone, even if it can access Twitter or whatever. um, I think that contributes compared to like 2 7 years things were bad, but like people are not as woke with information as they are today. People are not
Okay.
talking about deep state and blah blah blah. So I think social media is a big part of that. And yeah, what was
Okay.
your second question?
Yeah. My question was just the connection between the feeling of disillusionment, the anger and the hunger that we have in the country right now. The connection between
Yeah.
that and peace after election or the outcome of the elections.
Yeah, so
And
in terms of peace, sorry, I'll be short, but in terms of peace, I think it will be about
I mean, historically, in the last like 3 election cycles, it will be about sides, finding compromise. Because as Opondo said or alluded to, it's going to be tough this time. I don't think sides that will lose are going to concede that easily. So it might be about talking to each other, putting parameters that will somewhat satisfy the loser or whoever the loser will be. It won't just be like winner takes all or whatever. That's personally what I think will suffice, in my opinion, with the context of what's happening today and everything.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you, Mr. Paul, for that. And Paul argues that indeed that makes our country very vulnerable. The fact that we have so many young people who are feeling so hungry and angry, and they'll become much available. I wonder whether there is any panelist who thinks otherwise, who thinks that this is not going to affect the outcome of the elections, or this does not threaten our peace. If there's any panelist who holds that view, then please go ahead and share your thoughts. Okay,
I
it seems
doubt
to be
I doubt it will.
Yeah.
I doubt
Okay.
it will.
Yes.
I doubt there'll come a point. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I doubt there'll come a point where we as Kenyans or we as youth will come to that point of realizing that these people are just here to shortchange us at the end of it all. These things they're telling us is just nothing but propaganda that they've been feeding us over and over again. As I stated, as we're speaking now, it's not like we don't know who these people are. We know what they're capable of because they've been tested and we've seen what they can do and what they can't do. And I don't think they're going to change anytime soon. In Kiswahili tunasema nyani ni wale wale tu, misutu ndio tofauti. So it is just the same politicians. How are you expecting them to make
Okay.
things any better after the elections? I doubt any other youths out there would view things differently after the elections. If they view things differently, it will be when the results are opposite of what they expect.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Josephine. I mean, having talked about the effects of the high cost of living in 2022 elections, and all of us have seen that the effects are very clear. You have said that maybe it will not influence the way Kenyan votes, but we also share the view that at the end of the day, if the high cost of living remain as they are, then Kenyans will be available for misuse. And so I want to elevate all of you right now. And maybe, Mr. Oduho, let me make you Chebukati. Now that we have the threat of maybe there being absence of peace because of youth being available for misuse, what will you do as Chebukati to ensure that this election is peaceful, Mr. Oduho?
As Chebukati, I would take it keenly to acknowledge that it is important to conduct constant sensitization on responsible voting of the population between the periods of election cycles, so that ultimately when it comes to the point elections, then there is a sense in which people would have been sensitized enough about their responsibility as a voter. But not just that. You see, there is a very key matter here, that as a citizen, we have responsibilities and obligations to the state, but so does the state have duties and obligations to its citizens. And this is now what forms the basis of a social contract. And where hence there is a violation of this social contract, there has to be a remedy for either party to so that justice may prevail. And so that ultimately, in this instance, we find that the sensitization of people is crucial, and that is what I would focus on, but well before, and of course, not 1 month to the election.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Oduho. I wonder whether everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Then it must be maybe a problem from my side because I really struggled to hear what Oduho was saying. But let's elevate Mr. Gilbert Stark now to the chair of IBC. Mr. Stark, what will you do to ensure that the elections are peaceful if you are Chebukati?
If I was to be Chebukati, I would first acknowledge the fact that the kind of lifestyle or the stage at the moment, or will be at the moment when the election will be, that stage of the kind of life that we live will not change even after the elections. The prices will still be there, and these same leaders will still be there. Those who will win will lead the rest of the country, and those will still have their role to play in the country. So I would just urge Kenyans to vote peacefully and know at the end of the day, their contribution towards the country is the only thing that matters. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. I think you said you'll urge Kenyans to vote peacefully, and that is all that matters. And yeah, Mr. Washira, now assuming that because we have different stakeholders here, and many people can play a role into the peace that we hope for after the elections, Mr. Washira, assuming that you are President Kenyatta, you're leaving office, and you want to ensure that this country has a very peaceful transition of power, what will you do?
Before I answer your question, just permit me to go back. There's a question that you asked, and I really wanted to say something on it and did not get a chance.
Yes.
How the connection between peace and the high cost of living. You know, Kenya is among those countries that has a spirit when it comes to elections. The year of election is when you remember, oh, my neighbor is a Luya, my neighbor is a Kikuyu, and you are living in Kiambu. What are you doing here? So get out. And remember, now the situation are different. As you have all said, an angry man is an angry man. So it definitely has an effect. So I like to differ with my colleague here who said that it will have an effect. But if I was President Uhuru, I will simply do my job. Simple. It's just simple. Just do your job. When your tenure is over, leave it to the next person who will take over. This issue of taking part on who's going to succeed you, I don't think it is right, and I also don't think it has been working well over the past few times that people have tried that.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much, Washira. And Washira says if he was President Uhuru, he will just do his job and
Sorry, I think we lost Bwana Mukoko, but he should be back. That is why we're here. Always one is acting as a spare wheel, ready to take the conversation forward. I think these are things that now we are used to, especially this week. There's been a big problem with the network connectivity. I don't know if it's just from my side, but I've had so many people complaining. So is Washira just the point that you mentioned there, and you're saying that you don't really think on the point that he should just do his job and go his way? I think that is very well taken care of. Sabion, because we're also just almost heading to the end of this show. Sabion, if anything is to be done to address the current situation, especially the issue of the cost of living, because this is causing a lot of anger and hunger, not just to young people, but to all Kenyans, what is it that should be done just to address this whole issue?
To borrow from Josephine's cloth of thinking, I think she said that we should stop importing things and start thinking on how we can be doing most of things so that we can export them. Back then, I think this generation, it has been an influx of generational change, and with that change, there is this conduit of breakdown and deterioration of basic structural buildup of our nation. So you find that when we were growing, as we were going to school back then, we were being told that agriculture is the backbone of our country. But as we are now speaking, that is in 2022, we are craving, we are looking for things outside so that we can satiate needs of Kenyan. Are we trading on the right path? I think we are for showing something that if we trade on this path for the rest of half a score, I'm sure that the country Kenya, with its own richness, will be a deserted region. So what can we do? I think, to borrow from her words, the way she said, we should go back to the basic this by making that the building blocks, that is agricultural development. How can we expand? Because we can acknowledge that the two government, that is the Urus and Kibakis, they expanded roads. A good infrastructure means that when I have something, I can sell it. We should stop this issue of and this nonsense thing of going to pick things outside and start empowering our own individual. 5 years, 10 years from now, the conversation will be different. But if we insist on this path, well, let us buckle up. The tides and eddies is still coming.
Thank you, Mukoko. I was stepping in for you. You are back.
Yes, I'm back. Ni kama bando zilisha. Uchumi ni mbaya sana. But either way, that is part of the effects of the high cost of living. But thankfully, I managed to come back. And we were talking about the different stakeholders and how they will ensure that we have a peaceful election. And I think at this point in time, at some point, Oduho was Chebukati, Wachira was President Uhuru, and now Mr. Kitui, I will make you Baba for a moment. But you can also think of yourself as Ruto or Wajakoya, or who is the other presidential candidate? You will tell us about him. Maura, Samora. So assuming that you're one of these top contenders of the presidential elections, specifically, I'm using Baba because I want to hear you saying, yeah. But what will you do to ensure that this election is peaceful?
Yeah. This is what you wanted, eh? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So, first of all, like elections. Okay, I don't know if you've seen the recent demands he's been making to IBC, where it was like, across the electronic register, we also want, manual registers and all that. Those are some of the things that say an election is challenged by the loser, they'll want to exploit such legal loopholes, according to the law. Like the reason why the 2017 elections were nullified was because quite a number of legal loopholes were exploited and the rerun was declared. So in terms of peace, or in terms of saying now, or for his case now, Babas, I think it's a contingency plan for him, saying like, in case I win, or in case I'm declared winner, I'm going to need to cover up all these areas they can challenge from. So from me, one, on a legal perspective, you need to be able to sort out some of these issues. I also saw Ruto concurred with that. So basically, the metrics or the systems that you want to use as IBC or as an independent body that oversees election, you need to make sure that before everyone participates, everyone needs to agree that they are dealing on fair ground, or like they're in an environment they enjoy. The same way you can ask a boxer before a fight, are you ready? Are your gloves okay? Are you parted properly, and all that? And also in terms of like people, as I wind up very briefly, when you're talking to your supporters, like, you want to be efficient, but you don't also want to be boring. Roger Stone, for those of you that know Roger Stone, he likes saying, there's one thing he says that I like, is like, the worst thing you can do in politics, even worse than being wrong, is being boring. So you can see the kind of waves Ojakoya is making, even if his manifesto is unconventional, to say the least. And you can see why, someone like Wahiga, the guy you mentioned last, in fact, it took you a while to remember his name, because, he's just there. Apart from the manifesto he launched, he had like close to zero relevance. But, when Wajakoya comes and talks about, testicles over hyena and snake venom, and how planting like an acre of bank can get you 16 million and whatever, people are going to listen to that. Yeah, that's how politics works. So it's bad. It's bad. That's all I'll say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Muhiza Kitui. And I think you make a very fair point. All these top contenders should make sure that the ground is fair for everyone. They should make sure that once they go to elections, there is no reason whatsoever why a presidential candidate will doubt the elections, because they have a lot of power. And as you said, they should not be boring. And using the power they have as politicians, they can really have a very huge impact. I think we have just about 7 minutes left. And I think at this point, I would allow all of you to, first of all, just weigh in on this topic. If there's anything that you wanted to say and never got an opportunity, and try to make it as brief as possible. But even as you go, try to share, what is your message to Kenyans? What is your message to the president? What is your message to Chebukati, or any of those people, any of those stakeholders involved in this election, and all those people affected by the high cost of living? And I think I'll start with Mr. Sabio.
Yes,
Mr.
As they try to weigh in, also just to appreciate those who are joining us from the other platforms, because there are those who are not able to be with us in the virtual hall here. So There are those following keenly on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube. Their comments are coming here right on the screen. Karl Marx, asante sana for joining. Simon Kamau, Shimei, what is the second name? Okay, yes, Shimei, asante sana. Francis Mutoni. They've been having some very heated conversation on this other side. Jeremy Atambo, whose last comment says, I would rather vote for leaders that provide solutions aimed at economic recovery in their manifestos. What do you guys think? I think there's a conversation that we can keep having just there in the comment section. Francis Mutonyi said, allow you to get me out of that office. Hawa watu ni wanadamu na wanapumua hewa moja, same na sisi. Yeah, just weighing in about the leader. Simon Kamau says, perhaps we can also address the role of a citizen and their powers, including up to impeaching leaders and looters and parasites with their titles. Yes, back to you, Omukoko.
Yes, I think that's where we'll pick it from. As Simon says, that's why I'm asking you to share. What is your message to fellow Kenyans, acknowledging that they also have a duty and a big role in ensuring the peace after elections? Because Kenyans, if there is anyone to fight, it will be Kenyans. If there is anyone to be peaceful, then it will be Kenyans. So, Mr. Sabion, maybe you can share your final thoughts, your message to either the president, the citizens, or whoever stakeholder you think might need to hear from you. Mr. Sabion.
Yes, allow me to address citizens, because as the Constitution says, that is a generic thing, that democracy is for us, ruled by the people, for the people, by the people. So to narrow it down, we have all the veto powers to shape and to break the nation. We should not be allowed to be used as a conduit pipe of propagating and instigating ill intent. Let us be used as a good vessels that talk about peace and be champion of changes in relation to anything. But as back then, I had Opondo said that we have that power to go to vote for you or to vote you out, but we are not obliged to go and beat somebody in pretext of doing it for you. So let us pick one. I think we'll pick voting you in and out, but we won't fight we won't go outside that to be your marching warrior and fight. That is my
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Sabion. Mr. Wachira, what do you tell these Kenyans who are angry and hungry? And what do you tell them about how that should affect their 2022 elections, Mr. Wachira, or any other person you would like to address?
Thank you. Most of the panelists have had their economies, so I'm a bit different. I think I'm the only political scientist today here, so I'm going to be a little bit political. I think the way we are supposed to handle this issue as Kenyans, we had lost hope, and we had lost hope on the ballot. Right now, you can ask many youth out here; they have not registered as voters. But we keep on forgetting that is our weapon. And sometimes we do not even trust that weapon, because some people say, they're going to do what they're going to do. However, we are a country of people who like lamenting. We are always I don't know, it's the country of the continent. We like lamenting too much, because we do our job on the ballot day, and then what do? We stop from there. It is a continuous process. What people should understand, especially the citizens of Kenya, your job as a citizen does not end on the 9th of August. It is continuous. So let us keep on urging for better things to be done in this country. And one of the ways I can maybe suggest people to do, especially the NGOs and the civil societies that deal with this issue, that can be able to agitate for these issues in a better way. Let us empower them. Let us support them. Some people even don't know these civil societies exist. And I think if Kenyans are able to do that and they learn from their mistakes, because I believe failure is one of the best teachers in this world. Let us learn from our mistakes. You've seen what has happened. There was so much hope in 2013. There was so much in 2017. Even today, people lost a lot of hope. But I'm not seeing hope in this 2022 general election. But what I can urge people is, let us keep on having the hope and let us learn from our mistakes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let us keep the hope alive. Let us learn from our mistakes. Really appreciate. And Mr. Sabion says we are not obliged to fight fellow Kenyans. We are just supposed to either vote people in or vote them out. That is our power. And so to Mr. Duho, briefly, what is your message to any of these stakeholders?
First of all, to the citizens. There is a maxim, there's a Latin maxim that goes as follows: Vox populi, vox Dei. What this means is that the voice of the people is the voice of God. and in tandem with the first clause of the Constitution that states the people are sovereign, yeah, and that ultimately the elections is how the people are able to exercise their sovereign will. However, constantly and time and again, and I'm sure it has been a matter of every election cycle, there has been rigging every now and then. Hence, there is little trust in the electoral process by the people themselves that it is actually going to bring about change. With regards to matters leadership, it was Einstein who said, doing the same thing over again and expecting different results is insanity. There is a sense in which by constantly electing the same leaders over and over again in different positions, we are expecting different results. That unfortunately alludes something very unfortunate on our part as the people. Then hence, it is ultimately that as the people, we are to acknowledge that the power is with us. As I was saying earlier, it is that the people are hungry. The people are angry and hungry, but they are not angry or hungry enough so that wafunguke macho, that they are able to understand that that the buck stops with them. These people are employed by the people to fulfill the will of the people, so that ultimately watu wasipangwe, yeah, watu waache kubebwa, and ultimately people need to remember that their will is what should carry the day and not the will of the political elite. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Oduho. The buck stops with us to Sipangwe, that at the end of the day, it's our will that shapes or that should shape this country, not the voices of a few politicians. Thank you very much, Mr. Oduho. Even as we move on to Gilbert Stark, I just want to remind the audience and those who are still following us, the next time we'll be talking about social media, and we'll also be talking about fake news and how that affects the elections that are coming up. And so be prepared to tune in at 8 p.m. next Thursday. Mr. Gilbert Stark, what is your message?
Am I clear?
Yes, you
Can
are.
you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
So my message is uncertainty of the future of the economy of Kenya is rolling into play. And remember, at the moment, with the prices hiking and everything towards the elections, as the politicians give in money, there's fiscal and monetary policies that are also rolling into play, contributing to the prices of the goods and stuff. So with Kenyans, I just tell Kenyans to be very keen with the leaders that they choose. Why? Because with the kinds of policies that they give, that is most likely what they will use in doing their budget. Whether or not they're going to do them, those are the same figures that they're going to use. And remember, the load is on the citizens. So they should be wise enough and then maintain the peace, and everything will work out just fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gilbert. Maintain the peace as citizens. Remember to elect leaders who help us come out of the problems and the challenges that we have. I want to appreciate all our panelists today. A few of them are out at the moment. I can't see them. I will have given them a chance as well. But thank you so much for making time and for making very invaluable contributions to this discussion. We really appreciate. I think before I hand it over to Mr. Opondo, I'll just conclude by saying that these discussions will continue. They are very important that we have them. We have a nation, we have a country to save. Let's go and vote. There's someone who says that the best you can do is boycott elections, but I just want to remind them a quote that says boycotting elections is not protest, it is surrender. At the end of the day, we boycott or not, elections will be held. And so bad leaders are voted in by good citizens who don't vote. So let us go out there and vote and push for the change that we need to see. And then increasingly, let us continue calling out our leaders. Let us continue telling them and judging them at a higher level of accountability. And once we do that, we will have to push them, because at the end of the day, the power rests with us and in us. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Opondo.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Mukoko. Thank you, Duho, Washira, Sabion, and Gilbert, because you're still on the screen, and to all those who are joining us from the different platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Tunashukuru sana. Without you, we can't have this conversation. Remember, we are doing this because this is what we can do. We're just trying to contribute to that change in our small space. That small space that we have this conversation. Now, what tunasema, wenye masikio nao wasikie, ndio, na wenye macho nao vile vile waweze kutazama ama waone. As we leave this virtual discussion here today, remember next week on Thursday we are coming back with another great conversation on the role of social media on this 2022 general election and how well can we use it, because Paul mentioned it earlier that in 2007, 2013, 2017, maybe the social media was not as vibrant as it is right now. All the social media platforms, they are not as vibrant as they are right now. How well can we use this to ensure that we are bringing the development that we want in our country? We share the opportunities. I don't really want to say that we preach peace, but I just want to say that we promote a one united nation. Regardless of the challenge that we are going through, licha ya ugumu wa maisha, haki tafadhali naomba Wakenya wenzangu tuweze tu kujitahidi tudumishe amani na vile vile tuweze kuendeleza taifa moja kama Wanakenya kwa pamoja. Asanteni sana, muwe na usiku mwema, and this is always the debate night coming to you every Thursday 8 to 9 p.m. Good night, goodbye, na mlale poa.
Asante.